Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled July 15th, 2025 City Council meeting. Chad, will you say the prayer, please?
I will. Join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you this day, Lord, grateful for all the many blessings you bestow upon us, Lord, particularly for this great city of Nacogdoches and all of our residents, our staff, and our council, Lord. I ask that you be in our midst tonight, that we would make decisions that would be honoring and glorifying to you, Lord, and I ask that you just give us the wisdom to say the right things and do the right things and be kind to all involved. In Christ's name, amen.
If you'll stand for the pledges, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Okay, we're going to have a little pause here for just a minute. Wait for Brad to get back. Yeah. Hey, Melissa. Give us just one moment. We're waiting on Brad. He had to go to the bathroom.
Randy hates it when I get sugared up.
Brad, you're up.
I'm up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really excited about this. It's a proclamation. Melissa, you want to come up?
You can go over there at the lake.
Okay. Did you bring any family with you today? All right. Well, I think we need to appreciate people when they've been in business for 87 years. The history of this town. So I have a proclamation here that I'd like to read to you. The proclamation, Nacogdoches, Texas. Whereas O.C. Milford opened Milford's Barber Shop in downtown Nacogdoches, Texas in 1938. And whereas for the past 87 years, 3 generations of the Milford family, James and Jean Milford, and O.C.'s granddaughter, Melissa Milford McGowan, have carried on the family business of Milford's Barber Shop. And whereas the Milford family takes pride in the tradition established by O.C. of being a warm, welcoming place full of lively conversation, local news, and an occasional bit of juicy gossip. And whereas Milford's Barber Shop has always been about more than just cutting hair, but the many stories told by their loyal customers of good times and bad, love found and love lost, babies' first haircuts, and all the rest of life in between. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Randy Johnson, Mayor of the City of Nacogdoches, and on behalf of City Council, do hereby recognize and extend our heartfelt appreciation for Milford's Barber Shop.
Okay, next item is open forum, and I have no open forum requests tonight. They're all agenda items. Okay, next item, items to be removed from the consent agenda.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now to the regular agenda. Item 7A. Consider approval of the Nacogdoches Economic Development Corporation, NEDCO, professional services contract. Our city attorney, Mr. Jerry Baker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jerry Baker, city attorney. Sorry, this is kind of awkward. You will recall from the last meeting that Larissa presented an overview of the history of our economic development with a partnership with NEDCO as a city, and also discussion about Type B Corporation, which we're presenting in the next item. So I'll address that once we get there. I won't go through the entire history or anything of that nature. The purpose that we're here for tonight is to discuss the approval of the amended agreement with NEDCO. You should have a copy of that in front of you. And I hope you had a chance to look through that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as we go through this. But essentially, I would just say, I'll just wait a few minutes till people filter out. Okay, I think most of them are kind of filtered out now. Again, Jerry Baker, city attorney, here to discuss the amendment of the current NEDCO contract that we have. As I mentioned, Larissa gave a presentation at the last meeting, and so I won't go into all the details that she went into, but just focus on what we're here for as far as this first agenda item is to discuss the proposed approval of the updated agreement with NEDCO. The agreement that you have before you, I would just say this up front, just generally speaking, the essential terms of the agreement have not changed, okay? So if we're talking about the consideration or any of the major terms other than of course, the dates on the, so we're extending another 2 years, which was what the term was under the current contract. The changes that were made to the contract that I made essentially amounted to a lot of formatting changes and also a lot of clarification with regards to the role of Larissa and her staff with respect to any kind of assistance that they may perform assisting NEDCO with the services that are outlined in the contract. So I know there were some questions and potential concerns about, okay, who are you reporting to and all this kind of stuff. So the clarification was made in the contract that you have before you to indicate and clarify that our economic development director and her staff are, as I've termed them in the contract, city personnel and remain as such. And that as such, per the charter, they would report to ultimately to Rick as the city manager. That they are tasked in the contract only as an assistance role with NEDCO to assist them in that, and any assistance they may provide is compensated back to the city through invoices. And that really didn't change as far as how that consideration goes back and forth. As I mentioned, the amount that the city would pay NEDCO for the services that are provided under the contract did not change. It stays the same. And yeah, that's essentially it. So again, really I wouldn't say major changes, but more of a clarification was made in this amended agreement before you, just to clarify those roles and to do some more formatting changes that, there was some kind of misnumbering and other things that I tried to address to try to make it clearer as we look at this. So to ensure that this is a services agreement, that there's no indication that could be made from, or any inference that could be made of any kind of joint employment relationship between NEDCO and the city and what I've termed as the city personnel here. And I know several people have signed up to address this matter, so I'll entertain any questions once the public has had the opportunity to discuss this.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Brandy?
My questions were answered, thank you.
Okay. Scott Boyer?
All right, Scott Boyer, 61 Waterford Circle, Nacogdoches. I'm the current chairman of NEDCO. I know I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago at the last meeting, really on the Type B corporation, which we certainly feel like is a flexible tool that we need to move forward and take advantage of opportunities as they come up. Tonight, though, obviously I'm here to talk to you about the renewal of NEDCO contract and how important we feel that is. This Type B corporation is where we're headed, but we've got to get there. And we've got to continue to do what we're doing and not drop the ball there. We've talked a lot about the disadvantages we have in funding sometimes and how we are. And if you know me, I'm a sports junkie, and I think of it, a little bit this way from a baseball analogy standpoint, is we don't have the ability to sit back and just wait for a hanging curveball and hit home runs after home runs after home runs. We've got to string together a bunch of base hits. We got to steal a base every once in a while. We got to bunt somebody over. We've got to manufacture runs and take advantage of the opportunities when they come up, which is different than some other groups can do. And so we just have to continue to do that. Hey, maybe one day the funding changes and we go grab Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth and we just start hitting home runs. But until then, we need to bunt guys over. I couldn't hit, so that's all I could do. I just say that this council talks a lot about looking for opportunities for grants when those come up on things we're looking for. Effectively, what I would tell you is that the money that this community puts together and contributes towards NEDCO is effectively a grant. I mean, just in the last 4 years, it's basically about $1 million that outside of the city piece that the community has put into economic development, and that can't be overlooked. And outside of that, if you look around this room, there's a lot of folks in here that are very supportive, and they've literally put their money where their mouth is, and their time. I don't know what the hourly rate that Joe Max would charge, or Ed, or Ron, or Bill, or Robert, or anybody that's in this room, but they're devoting their time in addition to those real dollars. And I think, to me, economic development is all of our responsibility. It's the responsibility of NEDCO and the leadership. It's the responsibility of all the citizens in this town. It's the responsibility of the businesses and the leaders in this town, and it's the responsibility of council. And, what I'm asking tonight is that unanimously that you support this and do your part to fulfill that piece of the need. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Bud Wright?
Thank you. I'm Bud Wright. I'm the CEO of TFP Nutrition, live at 4207 Colonial Drive. And our company has been a member of NEDCO for, I guess, decades. And I had the pleasure of working closely with Judy and was her treasurer back in the day. And that was a wonderful experience. And it's a great experience today. The way things are structured, and Larissa does an outstanding job, and I know she works for the city, but there's a lot of benefit for those of us who come from the community, in that, while, as Scott mentioned, we do pay some fairly significant dues. We have monthly meetings, and we get to hear about what's going on in terms of economic development in the community that's not confidential, and so we're partnering, if you will, with the city, and we want the city to grow and to prosper, and that's why we participate like we do. And I will point out that for companies like ours that employ a lot of people, we're putting forth our effort. We're available as a resource, and we're paying dues to potentially attract a business that will want to take our employees away. So and that's just the reality of, but we're taking the position that we want the community to succeed, and we believe we'll ultimately compete successfully for those workers, and that more will come. And so with that, I would just encourage you to be supportive of renewing this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So does the council have any questions for me regarding the amended contract?
I just want to say I think you did a great job clarifying everything. Looks good.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we approve the NEDCO professional services contract as presented in item 7A.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Okay, next item, 7B. Consider a resolution directing staff to establish a Type B Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Baker.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jerry Baker, City Attorney. What you have here is a proposed resolution to approve the formation of a Type B Economic Development Corporation. You will recall from the last meeting that Larissa, as part of the discussion regarding NEDCO and their involvement with the city, also went over and gave a really good overview of what Type B corporations are, how they function, what kind of benefits that they could potentially bring to a community, and what kind of jobs and other prospects that could be associated or benefited through the operation of a Type B corporation. Again, I won't go through all those details again. She did mention to you that we would be bringing a resolution to you, and that's what you have before you. This resolution that you see is really step 1A of that first point there. And it's just granting the city manager and his staff, including myself, the authority to go forward with the formation of the Type B corporation. And that is authorized under Texas Local Government Code Section 501.051 and 505.003. And what this resolution would do is just, again, grant myself and the city manager the authorization to prepare the certificate of formation and draft up the documents and get them ready to be filed. Before those could be filed, just to let you know, I would have to bring those back to you for approval and review. Included in that certificate of formation is going to be a list of your initial board of directors. As Larissa mentioned in her presentation at the last meeting, that will be the number by statute is 7. So there will be 7 members to that board that are appointed by this council. And once the council approves, and I'm assuming that the council would, based on, would approve this resolution and allow us to proceed. If that does happen, and the council does approve the certificate of formation, it would then be filed with the state, and then we would proceed with the incorporation, the next step on that chart there that was outlined in the last presentation. Again, Mr. Mayor, I know several members of the community have signed up to speak to this, so I'll step aside and let them speak.
Okay, Ms. Cartwright.
Brandy Cartwright, 2806 North Pecan Street. So I've been an advocate of local parks for many years. And in that, I've talked to people from other cities and learned that quality of life projects like parks and trails often fall under economic development. But of course, when I investigated here, ours didn't because we're a Type A instead of a type B. So I think it's a great idea to be a type B because it gives us a lot more options. But I do have some questions. Is the plan to use the sales tax that the mayor wants from the hospital district to fund this eventually? I know that you can change it to a type B right now and fund it how we're funding it currently. But is the plan to fund it with that in the future? And two, are we talking to the hospital district about that? Because they have a separate board and they have to approve that change. And then three, can the 1% tax that we currently get from the sales tax go towards the type B if we don't get that from the hospital district?
I think I can answer part of that. I didn't understand your last question. What was your last question?
Because we get 1% sales tax right now, can that money be used to fund the type B if we don't end up getting that additional 1% back?
That would be your permanent source of funding.
Well, let me try to
Go ahead.
address. I can't turn my head because I actually have a couple of plates in my neck. We won't talk about prior lives. So as we're starting this process, obviously we don't have sales tax. I have been in this situation in another, well, actually, I've been in 2 cities that had 4Bs and 2 cities that didn't, that had their sales tax going to other uses. One was transit, another one was a sports facility only type B. So it also depends on what they were, how they were chartered. The 2 that did actually could use funds for parks, but that also was based on their original, when they were formed, under the enabling legislation, and also how their ballot measures were set up. And that was both Kemah and Galveston. So right now, that's not what we're looking at initially. So let me start with this. So initially, we would be looking at some residual properties, things that aren't generating money, as things to move potentially either to a commercial land bank. We do have about right at $1 million in the bank, I believe, right now. And of course, we can seek grants, we can seek other opportunities, which we are. Now, under enabling legislation, there is the ability to enter into a small agreement voluntarily between the City of Nacogdoches City Council and the Memorial Hospital Board to the tune of about $25,000. There is a multiplier on it. Now, one option could be at which point they are not upside down in their annual year to year. And as you see, I don't know if you were here for our budget presentation, is many cities, ourselves included, are at least getting to a cost versus revenue neutral situation in the coming years if we had no growth. We do have growth on the horizon, which is good. In that case, we could work with the hospital district and the legislature to tweak that multiplier. And so could it be 250,000? Could it be 2.5 million? There's roughly, what did last year equate to? Where's Todd? Did he run off to work out or something?
Around
10 million. I was thinking 10 to 11 million. So that would be one option. Another option would be, and this of course would be up to council, is there enough tax rate in there once the hospital district would be not upside down in their revenue versus cost? Would there be a portion of that penny that could be put on the ballot? Now that would be up obviously to the voters. Would there be a willingness to devote part of that towards economic development and still maintain their bond commitment and also indigent care? In a perfect world, we would get to that agreement through them straightening their finances and us coming together and doing a voluntary agreement. Of course, yes, I've also seen votes pass or votes fail in other places. I've seen some cities have to take multiple cuts at it. I've also seen some, and this gets into some of those things we even talked about in the budget workshop, have a strategic disadvantage because all of the surrounding cities around them actually have that tool, and thus lose out on major employers. And which actually just digs that hole deeper. You lose one, you don't get the ad valorem, you don't get more sales tax, and in the end, the rich get richer and the poor get poor. I don't know how else to say it. So our intent out of the gate is to form this, create the structure, look at what we can do without taking it to a vote. If we didn't have to take it to a vote, and we could come to a cooperative agreement to work in the next legislative session, not the special, but the one, I guess, which is now less than 2 years, we would start on that tomorrow. So hopefully that addresses it. But yes, in a perfect world, we have a different revenue stream, and unfortunately, that's not the world we live in.
To answer your other question about talking to the hospital, I don't know that the timing's right now. I think the hospital is in such a flux right now. I mean, they're considering ad valorem tax. I don't know that they really know what direction that they're going as far as other suitors are concerned. And I mean, on one agenda not too long ago, you had your CEO there, and then on the agenda there was her replacement. So I mean, I don't know that it would be productive to talk to anyone there right now, in my opinion. I think when things get a little bit clearer, which I hope they do soon, I think sure we could have dialogue with them. I think it'd be very easy, but until they figure out what direction they're going, I think it'd just be what ifs. So, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see. Ms. McDuffie?
Thank you for having me. Lori McDuffie, 1226 Mark Street, NAC. And my question was, you know, I don't see a problem with moving into a B, but what happens to all the general obligation bonds which were created other than that? Do those carry through? I mean, we sounded like a few meetings ago we had big plans for fixing plumbing in NAC with those bonds. So how's that going to be affected? And if you move to Corp B, can you still do that type of thing, or do you have to strictly stick with Corp B type funding sources? That's pretty much it.
So our best I can, and maybe I'll have, again, Todd's not, I don't think, in the crowd. I feel like a preacher, sorry. So we have our general revenue bonds, and we also have our utility bonds. Our utility-related bonds, water and sewer, they're coming out of that utility side. So the Type B, like right now, doesn't have a specific funding source, which in enabling legislation is a portion of sales tax. However, we can use residual properties. It can receive grants. We can enter into public-private partnership scenarios. Those are other things. We can receive donations from the philanthropic side. And I'm not going to say wink, wink, Elliott and Bright Foundation, but those are some of the options. And the other thing is the fact that we can hang our shingle out and have a 4B when we enter those negotiations with entities. That's one more thing, because that is one of the things that they always ask on the front end. Do you have a formed economic development corporation? So I think hopefully that answers it, but it won't affect our bonds. Now, if at some point we had dedicated sales tax, you can have scenarios where you could have some bond-funded projects through a 4B. In the case, from what I remember, of Galveston, we had several that were even on the sports side, redoing ball fields for Little League, things like that, soccer fields. So again, there's a lot of things we can do with it, but if we don't start the process at some point, it'll just be another 5 years or 10 years. And the goal is not to take away something from anyone else. The goal is really to have our cake and eat it too. said this before, I say it all the time, it would be great if the UT system somehow and SFA could be part of the hospital and a teaching component linked back to the nursing program in UTMB. And then we can find another pathway and then take it to the public at the right time, or enter into a voluntary agreement and also see their debt get paid down at the same time.
I just wanted to ask clarification, Mr. Beverland. I'm sure you'll be able to answer this. And I want to take a clarification on your question. Your question was about a type B corporation, right? This economic development type 4B corporation is not the same thing.
Well, they now call it type B.
Well,
Unless I'm saying it.
It's not an IRS B Corp.
No.
This doesn't change our mode of operation for the city as a whole. This is an economic development tool in state statute. This is not a federal thing, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to add one more piece. Just prior to this meeting, we had our whole budget workshop, and all of the bonds are moving forward. Everything is moving forward, so don't worry. They're all listed on, and they're moving full steam ahead. And I'd like to say, Case Opperman and engineering Mike New, they have been working very, very hard to implement all of the things that you've been asking about. So hope that's a simple.
One of the things, Brandy, that this might have been part of your question too, as far as the 1 cent sales tax that we give to Memorial Hospital that's obligated to pay the bonds, there are only 2 other cities in Texas, Nacogdoches and Eastland. Eastland's a little small town right on I-20 going towards Abilene. It's kind of ironic that Stephen F. Austin there were only 2 universities that weren't affiliated with the system. One of them was Stephen F. Austin, and now they're a part of the UT system. I'd like them not to be the last one that can change this and still benefit in our hospitals. But we're not even real sure the direction that they're going is going to be a local hospital. It could be a corporation. So that's another reason. I mean, how do you have a conversation when they don't really know or can't disclose which way they're going? So, thank you very much. Okay, next one, Dr. Grohl.
I'm Dr. Groman. I've been a Nacogdoches resident for 20 years. Beloved city council members and our mayor, Randy Johnson, and your team, do not grow weary in well-doing. Oftentimes, the decisions are hard. But because we do good things, we see good results that benefit our community of Nacogdoches residents that are here presently and those that are to come. Keep working together well.
Thank you, sir, very much. Okay, last is, but not least, is Judy McDonald.
Amen and ditto.
What did you say, Judy?
Any questions from the council concerning the proposed resolution in front of you?
I just want to say thank you, Jerry, Rick, Larissa, Mayor, all those that have been involved in getting this resolution to us. Community, thank you for your support and getting this to this place. I will proudly make a motion that we approve the resolution directing staff to establish a Type B Economic Development Corporation.
And I'll second it. We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item is a public hearing. We'll wait just a minute.
Didn't even get to say anything.
See you tomorrow.
What, oh, yeah.
Yours is not nearly as exciting, is it? So,
Boring, boring.
Depends on if you're a contractor
I'm
or
gonna
not.
read. Okay, next item is public hearing. Consider an ordinance amending Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Building Code, Article 3, Electricity, Division 1, generally, Article 5, Plumbing, Division 1, generally, Article 5, Gas Code, Article 6, Mechanical Code, Article 12, Internal Existing Building Code, Article 13, International Property Maintenance Code, and Chapter 38, Fire Protection and Prevention. Article 3, Fire Prevention Code, providing a severability clause, providing a continuation clause, and providing a repeal clause, and providing an effective date. Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure, Mike Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. It's probably the second or third time I've asked you to have a mouthful in reading these ordinance amendments, so I appreciate it. I did want to lead off with what we're doing here tonight. I may be carrying the torch on this presentation, but this is really a collaboration effort of our building inspections. We've got our building official, Don Shoemaker, here, our fire department, and our fire marshals, and our code enforcement staff. When I first got here at the end of September of 24, this was something internally that was discussed as we began reviewing plans, and I got more integrated in our not only our planning and engineering functions, but also our building inspection functions. We saw a lot of things that the 2015 versions of our building and fire codes didn't necessarily address or weren't reflective of what we're seeing in the development community today. So what are we asking council to consider tonight? We're asking council to consider adopting an updated version of international and national codes that the city has adopted. We have several different international codes: building, residential, plumbing, mechanical, gas, maintenance, electrical. I put electrical in there, apologize for that. Energy conservation and fire. And then 2017 edition of National Electrical Code. Many, many pages of code for those that aren't in the construction or building industry development. I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version. These are codes that our professionals, licensed professionals, utilize as references every day when they go out and conduct inspections of our commercial establishments, our residential, multifamily establishments, and many of the developments that come online within the community, and new projects that come online within Nacogdoches. Meeting certain standards are certainly applicable. What we're asking tonight is consideration of upgrading those to the 2024 of International Codes and the 2023 edition of the Electrical Code. Little formatting issue there, but state requirement is that the city, a municipality, home rule municipality, must have adopted some version of the International Residential Code, some version of the building, and some version of National Electric. Although the state allows cities to be flexible in what versions they adopt, which is why, you'll see us maybe maintaining the 2015 and other cities have different versions. It's really dependent on the city's preferences and interest in the code standards that they want to enforce. What does code adoption generally do? It helps increase safety and resilience and value of cities while minimizing risk and long-term costs. So when we have higher standards for building construction, buildings last longer. Site construction, sites don't create damages or other issues that could affect neighboring properties, and there's general consistency across the board. If there is no standard, you don't tend to see consistency within the community. These codes establish that. I will say the Building Standards Commission did receive a presentation from staff in April at the tail end of a very long list of properties that unfortunately the commission had to make a determination to demolish because the standards weren't up to code. But we received, as a staff group, we received great feedback from the commission, and they ultimately just chose to recommend that we move forward with this presentation to council tonight.
And Mike, let me just throw one
Yes,
thing
sir.
out. Having been in older cities and fast growth cities, typical best practices is try not to be 10 years behind in your code adoption, behind the most recent. And I won't get into all of the nuances of it, but eventually you can get into things with your ISO rating. You can also just have some things that just aren't preferable. There are some things sometimes that come along in the codes that actually make things easier, not more difficult, as they progress. So there's probably some cleanup in there too, that usually some complexities go away.
One other thing you've noticed as probably added significantly to tonight's agenda packet, local amendments. I'll touch on kind of the origin of those amendments, but essentially every community that adopts codes may have local amendments that apply specifically not only to our city jurisdiction, but to the region and climate and the topology or topography and geography that we are in. So many of the amendments that are being proposed tonight to the codes that we're asking council to consider adopting apply specifically to where we are in this region of Texas. It meets certain community needs. Any infrastructure constraints or particular architectural styles, if we already have codes or ordinances that address certain things, and one that was mentioned previously was, why are we removing floodplain language from our residential code and our building code? Because we do have a floodplain ordinance that addresses those things, so we can rely on our local ordinance to cover some of those. And that's really what local amendments are meant to do. The state gives cities flexibility to do that, to really fit it to the community standard, but still have a standard to adopt. I'm showing here a slide from the webpage of the North Central Texas Council of Governments. These amendments were discussed at length, and Fire Chief Brown can probably speak to this. He brought it to our attention as something we can utilize as a reference for local amendments that we look to propose, but they did a lot of the heavy lifting on looking very specifically with a fine-tooth comb each of the code books and trying to address things that either aren't applicable to our region or our area, or that may be specific to Texas and Texas state laws, that we're not creating by adopting international codes, creating a conflict with state law. Many of the codes that we're proposing that council consider as local amendments are part of this discussion provided by the NCT, North Central Texas Council of Governments. Some examples, and this is sort of a 30,000-foot view, but there's a number of pages of amendments, but some of the examples, definitions for things like energy storage systems. 10 years ago, this really wasn't a thing. It wasn't prevalent within the development community. We're already receiving inquiries about the city's interests in energy storage systems at the industrial and commercial level. What the residential code would address is how an individual homeowner may want to integrate things like a EV charging station or solar panels that integrates well with other standards that we already apply to residential code. Updates to address weather patterns, weather features, historic patterns that create maybe some different standards among building structures and resiliency in our area versus other areas of the country or other areas of Texas. New sections, and we mentioned Building Standards Commission may be more active in identifying properties that maybe aren't up to code and that haven't been addressed in many years. There are standards for us to really nail down and narrow what deems a structure to be unsafe for occupancy. We have code now that can address that very specifically. Some other ones that are real highlights, that these all come from the fire code. That was an important one for us to look at updating carbon monoxide detection across the board, residential, commercial, and education occupancies, raising that bar for that to apply more broadly across all new development. Something our 2015 version, it may have addressed slightly, but not in the way that this code does, and certainly something that we feel is absolutely necessary. And we can only enforce it if it's code that we have adopted. Big one there. Other requirements, again, when we mentioned battery systems, refrigerants, electronic access control systems, we're actually looking at implementing something to that effect at City Hall. And standpipe testing systems. These are some of the things that our fire folks have called out as something that may be of import and impact at whatever point we adopt these regulations. And I'll touch on when we might target that effective date. So if approved, we've asked council to consider a delayed effective date, not typical of ordinance amendments like this. Ask for 90 days, so that would put the effective date, if approved tonight, on or about November 1. If not, maybe a week or two earlier. The intent is to allow staff to communicate that these changes would be coming, that these changes would take effect, what those amendments are, and really respond to questions before people start submitting applications or permit requests that would then require them to spend money with the city. So this gives us time to develop a communication plan for communicating with development stakeholders. Our fire department, our building inspections team, our code enforcement, they're already doing those things. And we've been communicating in our pre-development meetings that this is something the city is entertaining. We'll continue to do that through the effective date. So that communication with anyone that may be impacted by this will continue. So there are no surprises with this change. I'll stop there. If you have any specific questions, again, we do have our fire and building official folks here to respond to anything specific you have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Hang on, I need to open the hearing.
Okay.
Okay, well now, this is a public hearing. We'll now open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing.
I'd like to speak.
Brad, go ahead.
I'm just curious about the transition. If a developer or someone has things in the pipeline and they've gone with the 2015 code, how do you deal with them when they say, well, we've done this and we talked through this, and do they get approved on the old code, or do you make them redraw their plans for 2024?
It will depend when they submit their plans.
But if they've been in development
So
in
if
the
they're-
meetings with you now, does that
If
hold
they're going
fast?
through the application, typically if they're going through the permit application process, we wouldn't then change
Correct.
their standard
Okay.
after the fact. So ideally, as we're bringing about this education, when they file for those permits are important as to what standards they would be applied to.
And the other thing is with this, again, since we have historically kind of flatlined in terms of development, however, we are going to get growth with SFA, student population, more density, all the above, more units, whether they're on campus or, well, although on campus, that ends up being under the system. We have less say in that. That being said, it will be a good thing to make sure that we have the codes tweaked before we hit a peak of additional development instead of midstream.
So will there be a re-inspection at some point for those same people to come up to the 2024 code, or they got through and that's what they're under?
They get their CO unless you typically, I only know this because of having worked in and rebuilt in storm areas, unless you get to a 51% trigger in terms of value of rehabilitation, do you typically then jump into the next code?
Does SFA fall under this code for the city?
Typically state entities, that's a whole different issue in terms of going through that process. I don't know if
Let me ask Don, if Don can
Yeah.
come up, talk about that relationship a little bit, and you can probably speak specifically to examples where that grandfathering would apply.
Don Shoemaker, building official. SFA being state-owned, they are exempt from any of our regulation. They tend to follow the ICC latest codes, which they would already be under the 24 generally, but they do not have to pull permits or
Okay.
ask our permission for anything.
That's all.
And Mr. Ma, on your first question, to me, my thought is kind of if you know, you were asking about what's in process now. Anything that is permitted will just continue to work under the 2015.
Okay.
You know, once we hit the date of, whatever that date is, if it's November 1st, if it's permitted after that, then, you know, that's why we're telling them in these pre-development meetings, either get it in before we change and get us to approve it under the 2015, or if it comes in after the November 1st and you're asking us to approve it then it will be under the 24s, if you accept it.
In your conversations with developers and builders and things, are they accepting of this, or are they?
Oh, yes, yeah, we've not had anybody, I would say, that has just said no, they didn't want to move
Okay.
forward. There's really not, I mean, there's a lot to it, but there is not that many changes.
Okay.
When you get down to it.
Thank you, Don.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, what gives us the most flexibility is that certain things, specific things like energy storage systems and carbon monoxide, that it gives us now the ability to address what we see are issues that we have no enforcement mechanism without these codes in place.
I just wanted to say, all kidding aside about, you know, this isn't really as exciting a topic. When I first got on council 4 years ago, I asked people what they wanted to see, and somebody, actually a couple people came up and said, I think the best thing that the city council can do is raise its building standards. And they explained all the reasons why, what you were just saying. So I think we're very grateful that you have gone through this entire process in how many months? Less than, you know, to really examine all of our building standards. That's really.
And I want to congratulate, to piggyback off that comment, I do want to thank very much all three of our divisions, departments, fire department, building inspections, and code, because this was a discussion I walked into when I got here, something they said, well, you know, how can we get this ball rolling? How can we start this process? Because, you know, in the horizon, we see that SFA growth projection. We see additional residential construction coming, indirect commercial construction coming, and other things that, if they're meeting a higher standard, that sort of begins to lift all boats in the way that we have discussed within our budget. Now, to address some concerns, I know that there have been questions, hey, is this going to increase cost? Is this going to increase personnel and staff? City manager mentioned one FTE, additional code enforcement officer, will be needed. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that nothing will be impacted by these changes, because there will be a learning curve, and there could be additional resources incurred. When we see it in practice, we'll have to communicate with the council if there are additional needs based on what we see within development and things that are happening within the community. So I want to be realistic and say that we'll always try to minimize costs, but nothing's a sure thing. So we'll definitely be conservative where we can and communicate with council.
Well, the one thing you can do, and having done this in the ups and the downs, we can accordion out that department as needed and also tweak the fees to support it when that demand comes. And I realize that, you know, that is, because typically, if you know you're going to have a multi-year effort of a lot of inspections, a lot of plan review, you can either do that through contract, which costs you more. If you use typically someone like a Bureau Veritas, they're very expensive, but they're good. Or you can add the FTEs or a combination thereof. Sometimes you contract your big stuff out, let's say one-offs like great big apartment complexes. You may farm that out, and then you may actually add another inspector internally that has all of the multiple certifications that they can cover all the areas. I don't know if Don wants to add anything to that, but we don't want to add them until we have them. But once we start getting that, then we would also potentially try to look at a way to capture the cost in the fee structure so it pays for itself.
And aside from our communication with the stakeholders and community, we are still, this is probably a step 4 in our process to try and align our codes with the fees that we have implemented within just about every chapter of our code. We've created a master fee schedule. We've migrated references to that fee schedule. We haven't yet taken the step to propose fee changes to the council. We don't have a definite timetable yet, but we do expect to bring something forward soon so that council can see that we are trying to adjust fees to cover the cost of service.
Okay, any other questions, discussion, or motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 14 as outlined in item 7C.
I'll second.
In
Yes.
chapter 38.
Sorry, Chapter 14, did I get?
Second,
Okay.
second.
Have a
Thank you.
motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our regular agenda. We will convene in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Section 551.072 and 551.087, and we will be back shortly. Thank you very much. Okay, it's 7:47. We're coming back in from executive session, and Mr. Mall wants to make a motion.
I'd like make a motion that we accept the terms for a proposed donation of property by Elliott Electric Supply and Elliott Electric in the city of Nacogdoches, Texas, the city, and is intended to be a statement of understanding regarding this proposed donation, as well as to serve as an outline for the preparation of any definitive documents between the parties in the future. I make a motion that we approve this. Aye.
Do it again.
Turned it off. Oh.
Turned it off.
That concludes this evening's. That concludes this evening's meeting. God bless the great city of Nacogdoches, Texas. Adjourned. It is 7:48.